The way that Americans do this is completely nuts. Honey, there's no way that can happen.
Like, help me help you.
Is it impossible to buy a house now? No, it's not.
If your offer didn't get accepted because of the price, because somebody else was willing to go to some exorbitant amount of money, then you weren't, then let them.
There is no such thing as a dumb question in real estate. As an industry, we are dealing with a lot of emotions.
I know that a day is like 10 years in buyer time. I'm not going to let anybody offer something that I can't go to sleep at night.
That's part of the challenge of being a good realtor, which is really taking care of the client. All right, well, welcome back to Millennia, everyone.
Yup, we're back.
Powered by Wawa Coffee.
Powered by Wawa Coffee.
One of our goals for this year is going to be getting an audience with Wawa for sponsorship. Yeah. Good real estate advice meets great coffee.
Can't be a Philadelphia area podcast without having Wawa call you out.
No, it's the thing, man. Went to school with a bunch of people from New Jersey and New York, and you can't tell those people anything. They would come here and they would experience the Wawa brand. It was very good.
Note how you didn't say the Wawa coffee or the Wawa food. It's
the whole thing.
Experience.
The whole experience, man. And now they've got gas and good price gas.
And the fact that people don't know that, of course they have gas. What do you mean? Because I'm from Delco where we had Wawa markets. That's where I used to go to get my deli meats and cheeses. Yeah. Hey, run up and go grab the milk and a carton of eggs.
Wawa, we are so proud of you. You've come so far from a little market in Delco.
I will say, I would love for the sliced deli meats to come back. But if you're not going to do that, can you at least get the big canisters where you get the tongs and actually get the rolls out and bag them yourself?
I don't know. Have you had any Wawa pizza? Is that any good?
It's good. It's fine.
It's good.
I would pick it over Domino's.
Oh, that's good. I lived on Domino's in college.
Who didn't? I lived on Wawa iced coffees in college.
We could charge Domino's to our meal plan at college. So we would just call at 2 o'clock in the morning after the bars and just I want 15 pizzas, 250 wings.
Oh, I'd be in my dorm at 2 o'clock in the morning working on my papers after we come back from Manila's when we shouldn't have been there, and would go to Wawa and just get 32-ounce iced coffees.
Manila's Diner? Westchester Pike? Oh, that's
nope,
no, it's in Wayne.
Sure.
That's in Wayne, yeah. So what's that one on Westchester? Oh, it's Squire's Diner.
Talking about Westchester Diner?
There's Squire's.
The
Country Squire.
Oh, Newtown Square.
Yeah, Newtown Square.
That was by my high school.
All right, well, now that we've covered the entire Philadelphia region and eateries and convenience stores, so let's get into today's topic. So what are we talking about today?
3 things that we want every buyer to know because we have not beaten this one to death yet.
When we were talking about this topic, we were saying that maybe we had covered this already, but there are certain things that I think we need to say more than once and beat into people's heads.
We have said
nicely,
all this before,
gently.
But they have been across multiple different episodes. I think we're just tying it all in together right now.
Yeah, I think we miscommunicated a little bit. I think we were...
Never.
We were supposed to come up with 3, but I think both of us came up with our own 3, right?
No.
No?
No.
They're all the same?
We talked the other day about it, and it was pretty much, yeah. I don't think Seth was on the phone call that we had together the other day.
I don't even remember the phone conversation. I just came up with my 3 this morning after I got Ben on the bus.
We'll put it this way. They all end up just being the same anyway because it's the same that we agree on.
It's the same thing we agreed on. Maybe it was just in my real estate archive. Okay, so why don't you go first?
There are some things we disagree on that are funny banter disagree, but I think there are some 3 fundamental things that we always agree on because they are fundamentally important to the way that the process of real estate works.
Which is why we're going to mention it more than once. And don't be surprised in the spring or the summer, we come back to these topics because people consume podcasts in different ways and they just click on different episodes. We want to try to get the good news out to the people, and that is our mission. So why don't you hit us off on our first...
Don't wait. There's no such thing as too soon.
Yep.
But there is such thing as too late. That's my favorite line I think I've ever come up with, and it was on the podcast.
I'll add some context to this. So I was with a client, and they are moving up from Virginia. They are getting to a point now where they have to sell their house down there before they can buy here. And I remember when did we start talking to them? Was it October?
Oh, a while ago, probably.
Yeah. It's March now when this podcast is going to be published.
We've gone out with them. 3 times total we've met with them. So that's at least 3 months and then a month before that.
They were getting in the car to drive back to Virginia yesterday. And I reminded them when I had our initial conversation where I said, I want to congratulate you ahead of time. And you probably have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, but you guys are doing this the right way. A lot of times, if somebody wanted to sell their house in Virginia for a spring market, they would start calling the agent in the place they want to move. A lot of them would wait till January or February. But during that entire time, we have been able to get them fully pre-approved. They've had some really good conversations with their family now that we've started the process. They just found out that they've got something that they didn't realize they had that would help their financial situation. They are completely zoned in on probably about a 2 square mile area.
It's not always either about giving yourself time. It's giving the family time too. Sometimes you actually have more resources than you think you have. And in this case, you give your family time to think too. And then especially now we're in a time of gift money is very beneficial to be able to go when you're buying a house. And if like your family can spend some time to like scrap together some gift money for you or work out a different arrangement for them, whether it's like paying them back for it or whatever system you want to work out, it gives everybody more time.
Yeah. And by the way, and I've said this before on this podcast, that the way that Americans do this is completely nuts. This whole individualistic, mom and dad bought their house and now the kids save and they have got to buy a house on their own. That is not typical across the world. Most families band together and help with the home purchase because they realize that it's a long-term investment. It provides stability. It provides an anchor sometimes for the grandparents that the kids, the grandkids will stick around. So it's those types of things. Keep, pounding this point home though, is that, getting out ahead of this process, there's so much you can't control. Being able to very deliberately check off these boxes ahead of time before you actually start writing agreements of sale and you start really getting serious about buying is so important. And like these people are moving, they've got a little kid.
Well, and their timeline changed too. Like it moved up drastically. They had come and said that they wanted to get their son through the rest of the school year and then sell their house and not disrupt school. So they were thinking settle on their house sometime after he's done school. So that's June. And then just move up here sometime before the school year starts, July, April. And then they realized after they talked to their agent that we're partnering with down there that they're going away on vacation in March. And what better time to list their house than when they're not home? So they just moved their listing timeline up like 2 months, which then moved their buying timeline up like 2 or 3 months.
And that would not have been possible, I don't believe, if they hadn't done the work here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely not. That would have been so stressful.
They would have been so stressful. They would have been like, honey, there's no way that can happen. But we've been working with them for 3-4 months. And it's been like literally how many combined hours have we spent with them in person? Maybe 3-4 hours over the course of 3-4 months. And that little amount of work. Now, they did the hard part. They drove up from Virginia, obviously.
But we've been talking to them like through each of those months, keeping in conversation and just making sure that we're like staying up to date. They were going to rent here in a short-term rental situation. We're keeping up with solving that problem. Speaking of immediately when you're going to be here, I think that was our first meeting with them, was seeing a house and seeing short-term rental options.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure like you have a plan no matter what it is and when it is, making sure the conversations are going well with lender and everything like that.
Whether you're a buyer or a seller, it's really about being as prepared as possible. I get the question all the time, is it impossible to buy a house now? No, it's not. We're continuing to put people into homes. People are continuing to do real estate transactions. And the reason is because they are making sure that this is something that's deliberate. It's a process that's thorough. You're getting hooked up with the right people, that type of deal. So
if you're working a process and you're just following the direction that you're given and you actually make the efforts to do it, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it can totally be done. So what's the second?
Ask all of the questions.
Ask all of the questions. Okay, why don't you take this one?
And now, don't get me wrong, there's times where you don't know what you don't know, but then things come up and there's a lot of like information overload at the very beginning, but don't be afraid to ask, can you go through that again? Or can you explain that another way? Or, okay, but what does that mean? Or what is next? And like, why do I have to submit this document? Sometimes better ask the lender for that. They know better. But ask every single question about anything. Or like, why would I go for electric heat over oil heat? So stuff like that.
The question we got was, what do you think about oil heat? I'm like, what do you think about oil heat?
What do you know oil heat?
Why are you asking?
I think it was really, what do you know about oil?
Yeah, what do you know about oil heat? And so when we bring people into our process, it's like, we want you to ask all the questions. And we do this all day, every day.
We have a tendency to speak in jargon that we're just used to and tend to get into our own, like anybody does in their own profession. You end up just like speaking within like your own like knowledge of things without considering the fact that like that's right. This isn't common knowledge and that's totally okay. And that's why we're here to educate on it. And so if we're not like emphasizing on something or we're not stopping to explain something, then ask us to, because we're just going on with the assumption that you might know, but you're not supposed to.
Yeah. Something I say to my clients is, I don't want you to get back in the car and then you turn to each other. What did he mean by blank? Because we do this all day, every day, we have a tendency to blow past things because like we know what it is. I'm sure you're very good at what you do all day, every day. And it's not buying and selling real estate. So please just ask the questions.
I was on a call with our lender, Mike, and a friend of mine. She's starting to look at houses and he was going through the initial illustration with her. And I absolutely loved when she was like, actually, can you go over that part again? I didn't really quite understand that. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Absolutely. And I'm like, yes, thank God. It puts me at ease knowing that if you actually don't understand something that you're going to ask.
Yes.
because I want you to understand. If you're not asking, I assume that you understand.
So we create a safe space for dumb questions. And there are no dumb questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question in real estate.
If it's a question that you have right now, chances are it's a question that I had when I was buying my house when I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah, I guess there are some dumb questions. Are there dumb questions in real estate?
Can you think of a dumb question?
Yeah. What is the roof?
That's
a dumb question.
Would you continue to work with the client if they?
I would.
Yeah.
Okay. I would. It's like, how do windows work? There are people that they think it's a really dumb question, but it's not. Like, when do I actually get the keys to my house? Someone asked me that, and I said, the minute that everything is signed at settlement, you get it at settlement. And that's what settlement is. But someone thought that is that a dumb question? I'm like, no, it's not a dumb question. Some people,
did they have like a rent back situation or anything?
No. No, they wanted to know because they didn't understand exactly what. And one day we're going to go over the timeline of an entire deal. That'll be a longer format episode, but I think that would be really helpful because we can also send that out to our clients and people can share that out because I think there's a huge misunderstanding.
If that would be helpful to you,
let us know. Yeah, let us know. But
this is the first he's telling me that we're doing this, and I like the idea. But if you think it's absolutely godforsakenly boring,
guys, we're doing it. We're doing it. You don't have to ask.
It's not even up for discussion. We're doing it. Sorry. Not sorry.
But he was wondering because he's like, wait, I'm giving money deposit, and then there's inspections. He's like, and then there's a walkthrough, and he's like, when do I actually get the keys?
A lot of people don't know what the purpose of the deposit is for. They're like, why am I shelling over like tens of thousands of dollars? I think that's also a PA thing. I learned this year because my cousin is a real estate agent in Delaware. She had somebody that she was sending up to me here, and they had already been looking at houses down in Delaware. And when we went to go write up an agreement of sale, and I said, okay, deposit. So it's typically about 2 to 3% of the offer price that you're putting in. She was taken aback and was shocked. And I'm like, why are you shocked? But like genuinely, what is the shock factor? But apparently they had been putting in offers where an earnest deposit was only like $1,500.
Yeah.
And to define what the deposit is for, you put in a deposit to basically secure your stake in making sure that you have something on the line to actually see this deal through and hold to your terms. So that if you do not hold to the terms of the contract, then the seller gets to keep that deposit money if you don't hold up your end of the deal.
Every state has different thresholds. So some states, my buddy in South Carolina, he says, oh yeah, he's like $1,500, $2,000, hold like any property. And I'm like, I don't get that. Like, where's the anchor for the buyer?
Fair, I think that's what mine was.
That might be because, your house was below $200,000.
Yeah.
We're talking like a $600,000
and
outside of Charleston, South Carolina. It's $1,200, $1,500. Like $600,000, we're coming with 15, 18 grand. I usually bump it up because you can demonstrate how much you want the property by giving more money over.
And again, in Pennsylvania, it's not required, but it's standard practice generally to send over the BFI, which is the buyer's financial information. That's just something that the buyer has to fill out. You have to fill it out yourself to just list your assets, your liabilities, just basically where you are financially. And then it shows basically that you have enough money to actually buy the property to cover like the expected. They don't know what your closing costs are, but you'll have a general idea and their agent will guide them towards deciding if you can do it or not. Whatever. My personal opinions on BFI are separate from what I'm actually saying. I think we disagree on.
What?
You like BFIs. I hate them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that one later.
If they see that you have $20,000 to your name and you're putting a $10,000 deposit down, that weighs a lot more heavier than somebody.
Yeah, just agree. Just agree and move on, Jen.
Anyway, it shows more that they're putting more on the line than somebody who's putting $10,000 down who has $200,000 in the bank. Nobody wants to lose $10,000, but it's okay. If the person who has $20,000 loses $10,000, that's going to be a lot more credibility to actually stay to the terms of the contract versus somebody who's $200,000 and it's 10 grand. Like, it sucks, but I'll live.
You are passionate about escrow and BFI, obviously.
No, I'm just trying to define it. I don't think people understand where that money's going. And they say, ask all the questions. So I'm answering the question.
So what's the next one? I'll answer this next one. This one is born from a client that we've been working with. I spent a fair amount of time on Sunday with them. They're very nervous. There's a baby on the way. The timeline doesn't help. There's some pressure. There's some moving about with jobs, but they know that they want to buy a house. And that's a good place to start. They are definitely in the ask all the questions camp. We've made it very welcoming for them to do that. But in the end, I talk to them a ton about mindset. And we always joke in the real estate industry that we're like psychiatrists, marriage counselors, financiers, morticians. Like I feel like when I have to call a buyer's agent or buyer and tell them that they didn't get the property, where I'm a listing agent, I have to tell the buyer's agent.
Mortician's a little extreme, I'd say doctor.
No, but it's the same, it's the same type of deal though.
A friend compared that to being a doctor and having to give bad news to a family member. And I was like, okay, I feel strong for doctors for having to go through that. And I wouldn't say it's like,
it's not that bad. If you list a lot of property like I do, and I have to have those conversations, and like each one I have to have that conversation 6 times, and then it's fairly often.
I've had my share of dreading.
It would be like a very shitty cardiologist who's like always giving bad news. So it can weigh on you. But having the right mindset when you're in the buying mode, we try to lay as many expectations as possible. You should not expect when you go to buy a house in this market, at least in Philadelphia, you should not expect to get the first house that you place an offer on. It can happen, but it's not very typical. And you need to get yourself into the idea and understanding that like there's more than one house that you can find happiness with. There are, quote unquote, other fish in the sea. In the end, though, it's about having the right mindset. She was very nervous about getting into bidding wars, understanding them. And I think there's a lot of pride that gets involved with this, where people are like, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I went to college. I'm saving. I'm starting a family. Worked really hard at my job. And I think people take it really personally. I think there's our other partner, Julie, and I are working with a client who it's very personal to them, and they do not like rejection. They just don't like it. But getting yourself in a mentality that you're going to have to churn a little bit. You're going to have to get out and see some stuff. You're going to maybe have to get rejected a couple times.
This is one that we did an entire episode on mindset and how crucial that is. So yeah, it's going to take some like getting out there and seeing things, and yes, getting rejected, but it's all to know that the right one's going to work out, and just know that it does. Like you'll get disappointed. And usually when I have to call and make the sad call to say, sorry, we didn't get it, I always include in there, listen, take the rest of the day, or if it's the morning, take today to be sad, be disappointed about it. Like we'll pick back up tomorrow. Feel your things today. It is a bummer, but it is not the end of the world. And this one didn't work out, so the right one will. There's like some real emotions where it can be a bummer. And I say, you know what, go be bummed. That's totally fine. We'll pick back up and hit the ground running in the morning and keep going at it.
I think a lot of people don't understand too that like when a buyer gets rejected, they've placed an offer on a house, and a lot of times they've told family, they've told other people, and then they got to go give the bad news. And so it can be an emotional thing for people. And so what we do is we try to set as many expectations as possible and make sure that they understand. It's listen, you're going to get rejected probably a couple of times. But I will say that I think between the two of us, I'm almost always, unless they're full of shit, they're telling me, I'm usually able to get the buyer like pretty close.
Oh yeah.
If we're not the winner, like we get a seat at the table.
Like top
30%, which if there's 5 or 6 offers, that's top 2. I just can't believe how many agents don't call. Like I'll be a listing agent and I just get like an offer and then a text being like, please confirm receipt. I've never heard from them, never had a conversation with them. And then they never call. Like if we set an offer deadline, they never call back and say, hey, the thing I've always told you guys to say is, do we have a seat at the table at review time? And if they're like, we've got a lot of offers, and we're like, okay, well, what do we have to do to make it so you're mentioning my offer and you guys are really like considering our offer with the seller? And a lot of listing agents will tell you, frankly, they should, because they're given an option to improve an offer for their seller.
Like so they don't have to, because they have the fiduciary to their seller to have confidentiality. But that's why I go to my sellers and say, listen, I am not obligated to tell them anything about other offers that are coming in or anything that is like your information that I am bound to keep confidential unless you tell me otherwise. Yeah. And I tell them pros and cons, and it's up to you how much or how little you want me to say to other people. It can be a benefit in your favor. We try to keep it fair. Nothing worse than just pinning somebody against each other just to screw over somebody else.
So if I'm asked as a listing agent the direct question, I want to improve our offer so it's as good as possible for the seller. I think fiduciary kicks the opposite way, where it's I'm not going to be like, okay, I have a $675,000 offer with no inspections. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, listen, based on your offer, you're short. You need to come up with more money.
What I hate is when people just say, sorry, I can't disclose that. I'm like, really? Anything? I'm trying, like, help me help you. Yeah. Help us help you.
And that is very much from like a normal market. In this market, I don't think that really plays. Everyone's out there trying to do the best they can. And buyers, like I think as a flip it on the other side, buyers owe it to their clients to make that call.
There's on the other side too. If we're not sure that we're even going to have a seat at the table and the buyer is willing to offer on it versus what we might think that it would go for, that's when I make the call to the agent and just say, okay, listen, I'm more than happy to write this up, but you tell me, is this with what you have in hand, is this even going to compete whatsoever? Let them know. And if they say, no, that could compete, oh, absolutely, put that down. But some people say it's not even going to compete anywhere close to what we have.
And then you get the stick in the mud agents who are like, you just need to write it up and I'll present it.
And not even me, but save my buyer the heartache of having to wait because it takes my time, but it's my job and that's okay. But it's more the buyer's sitting there and waiting and literally, and I tell the agents all the time, even when I'm a listing agent, I'm like, listen, I know that a day is like 10 years in buyer time. So I'm not trying to drag this out. This is where we're at. Try to just keeping communication with the ones who are keeping in communication with me and let them know we are working to I'm keeping it fair to get the rest of these in. But when I'm buyer's agent, I'm like, okay, you also understand that every day is like 10 years.
My take has always been, since the very beginning of my career, is about protecting the consumer experience. And obviously this market's very competitive and there's so much that we can control. And there's also so much we can't control. So those things we can control, I always push for. When I'm a listing agent, I tell every buyer's agent, like, listen, man, like I'm on the other side of the table all the time. And I tell them literally to the buyer's agent, I'm very cognizant of the consumer experience in this country. And I will not leave you hanging. Please text me. If I ghost you or something, or you feel like I've ghosted you, I was like, who am I kidding? I've got my phone in my hand all day. I said, I won't ignore you or whatever. And because I do believe as an industry, we are dealing with a lot of emotions. The thing we didn't even talk about with the mindset, I don't discount this at all, is that buyers tell their kids and they show their kids the house. And that has happened where I had a gentleman I was helping buy a house a couple years ago, and he showed it to his son. And his son was not like 4. His son was like 10. And it was awesome. It had a pool. It had a big open field. They were a baseball family. And the kid got his hopes up for the house. And I called the listing agent. I said, I want to be at the table at the end. And I said, what do I need to do? And I called my client and I said, listen, this is what we need. And he says, I'll call you right back. And he went to his son to have a conversation about like, how much do you want this house? Do you really love it? Do you really love it? And my client called me back and said, do it. He said, whatever it takes. I want it.
Oh.
And we didn't get it.
Oh.
Bullshit.
And did you tell the listing agent too that it was the son that he was doing it for? Make decisions based off of that.
I didn't, but it was a crushing thing for the kid. And so,
oh God,
I know it was hard, man.
Did you ever tell me that?
I think I told you like that week. I think I got on and I was like, man, that is fucked up. And so that's another
talk
thing.
About a reason to me to never want to have my clients' kids on showings. I never thought of it that way.
The kids didn't come to the showing.
Good.
The buyer, my client, showed it to him because he's like, hey, we're going to potentially move to this house.
I went on a showing with my mom. We were thinking about moving when I was some young age. I was probably in, I don't know, middle school or something, like low middle school. I don't even know where this came from. I think we saw 2 houses and then I think it was done. I don't really know how much further it really went.
Did you actually end up buying a house or you never moved?
No, we never moved. We were looking and I went to see his house and I was like, oh my God, I think it had a pool outside. And I lived in a row home in Upper Darby with like concrete jungle and like a front patch of grass. And this had a yard and it was I would probably hate it now, but the rooms were too small and they were. Like my parents had I don't know if they still had their water bed then, but they had a king size bed. Yeah.
Does anyone out there still have a water bed? Dude, I haven't seen a water bed, and I saw. I
used to love that thing.
I saw a water bed in a house in like 2018.
Really?
Thousands of houses later, I have never seen a water. Have you ever seen a water bed in a house that you showed?
Something's striking me like I
Can
might.
you even buy a water bed anymore? Like people sell like new water beds.
Hope not.
I don't know. That's
They've got to be.
If you own a water bed, could you let us know?
If you've ever seen a waterbed, did you ever grow up with a waterbed?
My sister had a waterbed in the city, but I didn't have one at my house.
Yeah, my parents had one. I can't imagine sleeping comfortably now as an adult. I used to think it was so much fun when I was a kid.
Yeah, they were fun until the water started coming all over them.
And then it did, and I remember them draining it one day. But this got so off topic. But to get back to a point that you were saying probably like 5 minutes ago with getting rejected and mindset that I think you started to say, and then somewhere down the line
we started talking about waterbeds.
We sure did. Was that with every rejection, I don't think there's ever been a time where like my buyers didn't at least learn something from it to apply to the next one. And that's the most important part. So like typically you will find out why you didn't get it if the listing agent has any kind of a heart. And then you've take that lesson that you learned of like, so here's what we missed out by. Typically you won't know like by how much. And that's always the first question I get back from the buyers is like, how much did we miss it by?
Yeah.
We're not allowed to know yet. There is reasons for it. Say the deal doesn't go through and then they have to put it back on market.
That is a violation of fiduciary, is letting an exact number. But if you have enough conversations with that listing agent, you know where
you have a ballpark. But anyways, so then you are able to say if it was a terms thing, then, or if it was it was like against this kind of financing, or like they were able to close in this amount of time, or they didn't have a home sale contingency, or, whatever amount of other terms that it was, you end up like taking your lessons from that and applying it to the next one. Right now, the biggest one's inspections, but we've talked about workarounds for that too.
Yeah. And sometimes buyers don't want to hear like why their offer wasn't quite good enough, but if you have enough conversations with the listing agent, you usually know.
I've ever had somebody not want to.
They don't say, I don't want to know why my offer got missed. Some buyers are a little more hesitant to take that feedback, especially the more principled ones. They're like, that's all the money I have, so I don't know what to tell everybody. So sometimes you can exhaust the buyer a little bit, but
that's when I tell people, I'm like, listen, and when we're deciding on what the offer should be, I'm not going to let anybody offer something that I can't go to sleep at night.
Of course not. I'm just saying some people get a little bit more defensive about their rejected offer than others. And but there's always a lesson to be learned.
But I'll tell people though, if your offer didn't get accepted because of the price, because somebody else was willing to go to some exorbitant amount of money, then you weren't, then let them.
I say this all the time to my buyers. I'm like, guys, I can't let you spend that money. I just can't. Like, we were going in on a house, it was like $500 and some $1,000. Thing wasn't worth a penny over like $460. And I think it got escalated to $505 or $510. I said, guys, I just can't let you spend that money. I just can't let you do it. I said, there's going to be other houses. If this was like the end all be all house you had to be in, okay. Or there's like a house where I'm like, I cannot let you waive inspections, or I cannot let you take this house without stucco inspection or a septic inspection or something like that. And that's part of the challenge of being a good realtor, which is really taking care of the client.
Oh, yeah. I just said that to our clients when I was out with them last weekend. They asked me my opinion on one of the houses after I looked at the disclosure. I said there are times where I feel more comfortable with electing the showing consult inspection over the full home inspection. I said this is one of those cases where I would highly encourage you to elect for the full home inspection. And if you didn't get it because of that, then that would be okay, because I still wouldn't feel comfortable with you going forward with that one because there are too many unknowns and red flags that popped up.
Okay, so let's recap here, wrap this up. So we got mindset.
Going backwards?
Let's go backwards. Let's keep everybody on their toes.
Mindset. Ask all of the questions, and no such thing as too soon.
That's it. That's all we got today. I think we're going to talk about sellers.
Yeah, 3 things we want sellers to know.
Next.
Sellers
Sellers are on the hot seat next.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye.